Hello, everyone, and welcome to Integration Downunder, December 2024. It's we missed the November one, but we're doing one in December where we normally don't do one in December. It's just been a busy time of the year for at least for me, I know, and for most people, from what I can tell. Our organizers are Martin in Perth, Dan in Brisbane, Mick in Sydney, Wagner in Auckland, and myself in Melbourne. I did get to spend some time in Sydney yesterday at the Microsoft AI tour, caught up with a few of the other MVPs. Tonight's talk, we've got Wagner talking about the latest announcements from Ignite. So that, without any further ado, I think we'll just go on to that. And it'll be good for me and everyone to catch up on these announcements because I just didn't have much time during the Ignite to listen in. So with that, I will hand over to Wagner.
Hey, Bill,
Here
thank
you go.
you.
There's your slide deck.
Yes, thank you. And it's good to be back. I think I was looking at my list of presentations. Last time that I managed to join for a session was back in February 2024. So it seems like I'm the bookends of the Integration Downunder this year.
Yep.
What we're going to be talking today is a little bit about the Ignite recaps, right? And it's probably not going to be any just let me. If my
I've just made your slides full screen.
Okay.
And got rid of us off the screen.
There we go. So I don't think it would be any news for anyone in if being following Microsoft. There are a lot of the stuff that we did during Ignite was about AI, right? So we're going to be talking today a little bit about the Azure Logic Apps AI building blocks, then how to actually take advantage of some of the other things that we have in the platform to measure Logic Apps returns when using AI, so to measure your AI returns. And after that, though it's not here in the slides, I also going to go through a set of articles that you're going to find in Integration Azure on Integration blog. We have some of the other smaller announcements that are probably still quite important for a lot of people. So let's talk a little bit about the building blocks that we have for Azure Logic Apps. So when you're looking at the AI, and especially when you're talking about the AI potential, right? The whole idea is taking like business outcomes and developer productive. That's some of the main cores of our platform, and that is exacerbated with AI, right? So AI has becoming even more important to have those things in place. We know that integration platform is usually already in the middle of your business process. And because of that, it's in the best place to start taking advantage of AI instead of having to reinvent new customer experience and other things, right? So one example of how we can take advantage of an existing business process is through AI agents. You can provide an ability to respond to series of events and complete a given objective through to a set of tasks, right? But to build those agents or agentic workflows, you need a set of AI models. And that is something that we offer as first-party integration. We have integration with most of the models for the OpenAI and from some of the other models as well. If you wanted to use first-party like Azure OpenAI, we can use our own connectors. If you wanted to use other ones, you can still take advantage by embedding Azure API management on that. And the other side that you can see of that is, in order to create those AI agents, we also needed to contextualize this process, right? Because one thing is you have in your generic model that is talking about anything and everything. The other one is bringing it to to actually your business context. And this, like in order to ground your data, in order to ground your model into your business context, is another place where you can take a lot of advantages of logic apps, like based on the large libraries that we have from data sources, connecting to that and ground that model. So let's take a little bit of talk a little bit about some of those building blocks and how logic apps can help. So when you're thinking about the building blocks, the first thing that we have is the large language model, right? So on that, we have out-of-box connectors for you to use, right? For you to generate embeddings, to add in those multimodal models for those chat completions to complete to retrieve and complete the conversation. So the Azure OpenAI connector enables access to large language models for embeddings to chat completions, the AI insights. On the other side, when you wanted to store the vectors or you wanted to search those vectors, we have Azure AI Search, right, that allow you to connect to those systems and both to store those indexes, but also to retrieve that data. And the other part that you needed to do that is like parsing and extract the text to complete those documents. We have connectors to process those documents with image, tables, graphs, and extracting information from that. While those connectors offer simplicity, it can also support rich configuration so that you can easily customize that for your needs, right? And using those components out of the box, you'd be able to create a set of those of those processes. Here is some more details around that. Okay. So large language models are super powerful, right? But they usually rely on public data sources. And while that is quite useful, it might not be enough for you when you need a response that is actually grounded or personalized to your business context. And that's where integrating with your business data is quite important, right? For logic apps, you have access to all of those data sources from our out-of-box connectors. You have more than 1,400 connectors today. And the process that you usually would do with that is load that information from virtually any store, or even as the result of an event that is being passed to you from another process. That's why we talk so much about embedding some of those processes as part of your existing integration. Then once you receive load that information, load those documents, then you needed to tokenize and split that data into like smaller chunks that are optimized and to make it easier for search and retrieve data later. Then you needed to get this data and embed that into OpenAI or OpenAI model, an OpenAI data store, right? And what you do basically with that is turning that data that you receive into numerical representations that the vector stores can understand. And then finally, you store that information in databases like the Azure AI Search, right? But now both Cosmos DB and SQL Server can also work as vector stores, and we have connectors for those components as well. So on the other side, so that is when we're ingesting the data, right? So on the other side, when you're retrieving this process, the way that the AI agents works is by taking a question or an instruction and then find the right context and generating a response, right? Those questions can come from a human. It can via a chat agent, can come from AI agents, right? So that the components that are actually embedded on your system and then generating those questions for your model. or even via some other business processes. So once you receive that, and you wanted to understand the information, the first thing that you're going to be doing is do a quick a search on your vector search, find out the context that it needs to generate the answer or to pass the answer. Then you go and provide instructions to the model on how to respond to that. And using things like the Azure OpenAI search then and the large language models to generate answers that are acceptable for the user. And at the end of this process, you pass the answer back to the question. And with Logic Apps, you're able to recreate this whole workflow, right? We have out-of-box connectors to make it easy to retrieve data from the vector search, to create those chat completions, as we call, from the LLMs, without needing to build anything or write any code. And we have a demo here showing pretty much how that would be working in real life. So the demo that we're going to get here is a customer service process, right? That needs to automate as much as possible product returns, but also create some guardrails for when it needs human interaction. So in our case, we have a customer that requests a refund, provides some kind of evidence, and that evidence can be both textual and visual, like based on images. The Logic Apps is going to be doing a couple of things. It's going to be using image recognition to get a recommendation, but that recommendation is also going to be grounded on the customer history. Depending on the result, if the result is a success based on the rules that we put together, we can return a success. Otherwise, we can push that for approval from a human in the loop, right? Once the human complete that loop, then we can also send that the results. So let's take a look at a video here of how that process would look like. So here I have a Logic Apps when an email arrives, right? And then I'm going to be looking for each one of the attachments, grabbing the image content, and then save that image to a store. And after that, pass that to a second process that is a Logic App that's going to get that logic. So I receive a request on that Logic Apps with some details, including mail, subject, right? And the first thing that I do is get a return history for that customer, passing the email as a detail. So we go to Dataverse, we get those returns, like what is the history for that, then using the email as a detail, and then come back. After that, that's where we started to working with OpenAI, create. Yep.
Just got a couple of questions from Nathan.
Questions, Bill, on that?
Yes, we've got a couple of questions from Nathan. Which use case would be good to use Logic Apps versus semantic kernel?
So usually, or in some cases, you're going to be using those two together, right? So when you're using semantic kernel, you would be creating a process similar to what we're doing here, but in this case, when you needed to have skills or to have actions out of semantic kernel, you can create a workflow ready for you to be used as a plugin in semantic kernel. I would say that if you needed to decide which one would be the best one to use, is do you already have a process similar to this one where you can embed this process inside the business context, or the workflow that you already have, Logic App would be a good case for that. The second one is, do you need, similar to what we did here, do you need it to augment the process with data from a assess system or a line of business system where you have a connector, you already know how to connect for that from Logic Apps, is another big point to use Logic Apps for that.
Yep, because the example that I was at the AI tour yesterday, and the workshop that we were doing was doing a lot of the similar stuff, but it was using Python, and they had written the code to talk to Cosmos with Python. And they just incorporated that, where you could do the same thing with the Logic app and incorporate that pull of the data from Cosmos with the Logic app, I'm assuming.
Exactly. So I would say that it really depends on a couple of factors. One, as I said, what you already have in your state, right? Like in your setup. If you have a group of developers that are a lot more familiar with Python and is going to be more comfortable with Python, they probably going to be the gearing towards semantic kernel, right? Or some others like LangChain and things like that, right? But if you have a group of integration specialists or even cloud developers that need to create those systems quickly, you would be able to do that without having to learn the whole library, because we actually created not just the components for you to connect, and you have like all the components to connect to the line of business systems, which is from where you wanted to ground your data. But also we created templates for all those processes that you can take advantage, right? If you're looking at the one of the items that we're going to show is our templates from Logic Apps Standard. It's now GA, and one of the templates that we have for that is actually the ingestion and retrieval workflows for rag patterns. Does that answer for Nathan?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So rewinding where we were on this picture here. So we are going through the process, right? We're going through the process to execute that return, taking advantage of AI. We receive the message. Then we went to Dataverse and took the history for the customer. Now we are in a place where we should be able to get those chat completions. So ask the AI to generate an answer for us based on that information. And what you can see here is that we're using GPT-4o, right? That supports the images as well. And we created an image where we pass in the image, we put the row, and the message that you wanted for the system is, you are an AI assistant that determines if a return should be accepted or denied, right? Use this policy to determine if we can, if there is no good quality, that is not received on time. Then looking at the image, and also you should take looking into the return history that we pass in on the body. The rule for that is, if it's more than 4 returns in 6 months, do not accept, right? Provide a summary with the reason and why you should be accepted, rejected, or not. Then after that, we're going to be doing another process, right? Another chat completion to actually get a true or false for that. So based on the response that we receive from the other one, give me true if it was supposed to be accepted. And with that, you know the rest of the process, and you're going to be sending an email back for the customer. If it was false, then we're going to include the human workflow for them to and continue sending an email where the email is like basically thanks for your shopping. This is a first example of a message. We send in a message, open packet that I receive, and say I like to request a return for my purchase and return the item as attached. Right, so that it shows that it's been damaged. So when that message is sent, it goes to the system, and you're going to be receiving back that your return has been accepted. And if you're looking at the message, we went through all of that process. We find out that, right, and it gives like the product has been damaged, and there was no return history. So in the end, you should be okay. So now let's send another one, and you buy coffee, but you're saying that you receive peanuts, right? So it feels like something that is someone trying to fishing for a return here. So in this case, it goes through or waiting for the human approval to return. It probably came back with this looks like a peanut. I would need to be the return was rejected because the product shown in the image is a bag of peanuts and is not related to coffee products. So the advice of the process is reject, but it's up to the customer to accept or reject that. Sorry, not the customer, but the sales operator for that. And I give you all the evidence together. So in this case, we're going to reject, and it receives the response rejected. Then we have a last one where this customer is sending. It looks like a proper return, right? The package has been open, but the customer needs the system asks you to review because although looks like a valid case, this has months history, right? Then with that, we ask the human to intervene and to go through the process for that. Like looks like a real case, right? And that's exactly why we wanted the human in the loop. And probably the difference between just a pure rules engine versus that approach where we can put a human in, can still make the sales representative can still make the judgment and approve it. So this was the demo that we have, and we could see that the creation of that process is relatively simple with things that we do day to day with logic apps, right? The main thing that you needed to take into consideration here is that one, you would be able to embed that as part of your existing business process and just taking advantage of AI to speed up that process. Probably one of the questions that your business is going to have is, okay, but for that, I'm going to need to do some investment in OpenAI search. I'll probably need to do some other processes to ground my data. What could be the investment or the return for that? How do we get some of that investment? So how can we get that GenAI automation and measure that and find out if it's important? That's where business process tracking might be useful for us, right? So Peter Drucker, that is one of those management luminaries that a lot of people follow the principles, talks that you can manage what you don't measure. So how do we get the measures, and how many times that process run, right? Like some of the questions that you could have is, how can we answer if the Gen AI solution give us value or give us better outcomes? Like how that can be put in numbers. How can we expose this data, right? It's like the results and the process to business stakeholders. And how can we quantify the AI outcomes and and measure the effectiveness of that? Then how can we do all of that without disrupting the architecture that you already have, right? So, and with all of that, this is some of the things that business process tracking could do for us, right? The idea of business process tracking is exactly allow you to define business process and understand some of those metrics, like how many times it has been approved, how many times it has been rejected, like how many times did we have to inject human, what is the rate of human rejection and rate of human acceptance, and things like that. So let's take a look at how we could do that in practice. Let me just run this video here. So
here is the conceptual business process that we just saw in the demo. Now what we're going to go ahead.
I didn't realize that Kent was had this all already with audio. So, but I think it's going to come a lot better from here than me. So, Bill, can you confirm that you can hear the video, the audio?
Yes, we were hearing it. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's bring Kent, even if it's like virtually, to that.
Here is the conceptual business process that we just saw in the demo. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is apply business process tracking to this business process. In the Azure portal, a business process tracking designer, and we have the ability to model that same business process that we saw. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is define different stages that represent those steps in the business process. And when we create a stage, we have the opportunity to provide properties such as this message property that will capture the response from our AI recommendation. Now, in order to go ahead and map that data, what we can do is define a logic app for which we would like to collect that information. We can select the data sources, and what this is going to do is load a read-only version of our workflow. We then choose a particular point in time for which we want to emit this information, and then we can go ahead and use the token picker to extract data from prior action execution. Once we're done mapping all of these different stages, we can go ahead and deploy this particular business process. Once our business process is deployed, we can go ahead and take advantage of the transactions into a particular product return. Now, here we can see that we followed down the path of having AI recommend this product being returned, and we can see exactly why our AI recommendation suggested that we can automatically return it. Now, in the event that we want to automatically approve it, that's where we'll go down a different path. And in this case, we're going to go down the human in the loop. Now, because all of this data is stored in Azure Data Explorer underneath the hood, we also offer extensibility. So here's a custom Power BI dashboard that has been overlaid on top of all of that tracking data that we just collected. Now, in this case, we can see we've had 34 product returns. 10 of them have been approved through AI. 24 have still required human intervention. Now, if we think about a cost savings, we can assign a labor rate, and this will result in a cost savings. This is AI, and finding particular scenarios where a human doesn't need to be in the loop.
Yeah. So you can see that on that sample, we answer some of those questions, right? Like how we can model a process to understand the effectiveness of the AI execution, right? Based on how many times AI return it. We can take we can even put a number on that, like how many man hours or sales operator hours has been saved with that, and this would allow you to like answer the questions about return of investment. But most important than that, that generates like a improvement loop. We see that in this case, 13 humans approved. What is the commonality between those processes? If that's the case, we can improve our prompt and improve our rules to say in those cases, because we already have a history of approval, update the rules to get that approval. It could be, for example, if you find out that it's damaged, then even if you have more than the 4 returns, you still approve it automatically, right? So you can model, and because all of those rules are in human language, you can apply and quickly test and see if the results that you wanted are the results that are expected. Bill, any questions on the chat on this one?
Not so far.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So here, I think is in terms of the content, I pretty much finished some of those items, but now I have a set of announcements on our blog. And I think those ones, I'll see if I'll be able to open some of those emails and share. So the first one is the announcement of the public preview of the XML Compose and Pass with schema, right? So let me see if I can get this open. And then I'll share that with you here. Okay, so we now have a couple of operations, right? We have XML Compose with schema and you have XML Pass with schema. And the idea of that is allow you to receive an XML component, an XML message, provide a schema, and out of that generate a set of tokens that can be used in Logic Apps directly, right? So by passing that, similar to what you do with a raw JSON and pass, you would be having access to have access to each one of the elements on that message, right? And that would be simplifying the usage of XML inside inside your Logic Apps, because before you would needed to be using operations for all of that. So the other one is like XML Compose with schema, right? So when you provide a schema, then you would be able to compose the JSON, use the XML schema, and then from there you would have the XML that matches that schema, including namespace and things like that.
I can see this
right, so
being
you're
a
going to be
big one with.
BStock migration.
Yes.
And like legacy, yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we made that investment, right? We wanted to close some of those gaps that we had with BStock, so you can actually bring workloads from BStock into Logic Apps in a way that is not that you don't have to reinvent a lot of things. So we did a lot of investment on initially on the XML transformation supporting like the extensibility that BStalk gave with .NET Framework, using C# components inside of XSLT, using external C# components there as well. Then the first iteration of custom code was exactly supporting .NET Framework for you to be able to bring those other workloads or those shapes that are being used in .NET Framework in BStalk in here. Now with that is the case for if your message state is still predominantly XML, you still be able to use that as a first class message inside Logic Apps without having to do a whole lot of gymnastics. So next on the list is integration.
We got a comment from Nathan. Seems feature parity between BizTalk and Logic App has come a long way, but any announcements on the migration tool keeping up with these new features?
So the BizTalk migration tool that we have there is not something that we're going to be upgrading. What we find out based on that experiment is that the orchestration itself, based on the customer feedback, is not the hardest part. The hardest part is trying to recreate what has been done in BizTalk using the new Logic Apps concept, right? And what we find out on that is, if you try to replicate BizTalk as Logic App, or not just as Logic Apps, as AIS, the system is going to be really complex because all of the things that comes out of the box on BizTalk. So what we're doing is creating that set of tooling for you to reuse as much as possible the actual IP and business logic that you have, which is embedded on pipeline components, is embedded on some of those C# DLLs, on the maps and transformations and the schemas. Then recreate the orchestrations, applying the level of throttling that you want, applying that to the messaging store that you want, right? So at this stage, we don't have plans to continue the BizTalk migration tool that we had on GitHub before. We needed feedback from customers to find out if there would be like an orchestration migration, for example. But it's not something that is on our roadmap right now.
Good.
Does that answer Nathan?
I think so.
Okay. Okay, so next one on that list is integration environment and application monitoring. So we did a lot of enhancements on this one. And we're going to see that now we are in public preview of the integration environment, but we also have some new and some updated UX and features on that, right? So one of them is the single pane of view into the health of all applications on integration environment. So with that, you can have like a consolidated view of that thing. So for people that is not used to integration environment, the whole idea of that is combining groups of AIS components into an integration application that you can monitor end-to-end and that you can see excuse me, the health as a whole, right? But with this new view, let me see if we have some pictures here. Not yet. So with this new view, you would be seeing that this component, like the health of your whole state of applications in a single place. So you know which applications might be failing or which applications might be on a healthy state, and then jump from there. The other thing is the end-to-end message tracing across AIS resources, right? So you can now trace, if you pass in the correlation ID, you should be able to trace that across multiple components and find out the actions that they took. And we made a whole lot of improvements on the monitoring for logic apps, right? With a health dashboard and with a bulk resubmission inside of that process as well. So now it's embedded into into the components instead of being on external workbook. And the browsing experience is a lot simpler for you to use that. You would be able to find the resources more easily, and you're going to be able to find API connections and things like that in a lot easier way. So it might be that if people is interested, that we can have another session later next year on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wagner, Mick here.
Yes.
Just
Hey,
a
Mick.
question. Hey, how are you? Just a question on that. Is that going to eventually trickle down to just Logic App Standard and give us a better view of that environment?
Yes.
Right.
So some of those health dashboards are
Yeah.
actually at Logic Apps level as well. Because Divya is driving that one, I needed to confirm if like bulk resubmission and some of those items are also embedded inside Logic Apps, but I have the impression that yes.
Okay.
But I already saw some of those health dashboards. If you're looking at health insights on Logic Apps Standard now, you have some of those details. Part of this might not have been trickled down to Australia East in special, but for some of the reasons as well, because we are in the middle of the end of the year freeze. So by the third week of January, we should be seeing a lot of those things being light up in all the regions.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be open each one of those, otherwise we're going to be spending the rest of the more than an hour here. But the other items of importance is integration account premium is now GA, right? So if you use an integration account and you had problems before, excuse me, with the number of components and the types of components that you would be able to use on that, you should or use that together with Logic Apps Standard. You now should be able to take advantage of integration account because it's a premium that is in GA. Templates is another one that is being announced in GA. So you should be we have a new experience when you're creating Logic Apps in the portal for the either create a Logic Apps, an empty Logic Apps, or take advantage of one of the templates that we created. And those templates now are in GA, so that I would be able to take advantage of that. The other component that we created on this is the ability to have multi-step templates. Let me open that one because I really trying to remember the name that we gave to that feature. But that is going to be another quite interesting feature. Right, so the templates that we have now is officially GA, but we're also introducing accelerators. So the idea of an accelerator is a mood workflow template designed to provide a solution, right? For example, a pub sub where you have the pub workflow and the sub workflow as one accelerator, or the direct patterns where you have both the ingestion and retrieval components. Instead of you having to create those manually and recreating some settings in some cases, you should be able to take advantage of the accelerators and create that as one go.
Now, is there any plans to bring this to Visual Studio Code?
It is on our roadmap. We're completing that in the portal first, but we're going to be bringing is high on our priority list. But I just don't have ETAs on where that's going to land right now. But definitely is on the list for the going to VS Code. So the same way that you're creating empty workflows, you would be able to take advantage of accelerators or probably initially templates. Logic Apps Hybrid is now in public preview. So if you needed to access on-prem resources, or you needed to deploy some of your Logic Apps resources to other clouds, you should be able to start taking advantage of that. There is a revamped from the previous one, taking advantage of the Arc components that are down there. And as the previous incarnation of that, there is going to be taking advantage of AKS to deploy those components. As I think we talked about the hybrid before, but just a quick recap and a quick reminder on that. The idea is for us to have semi-connected environments, right? So what we mean by that is your runtime is going to be fully running on-prem or on the other cloud, depending on where you deploy that. And it can be running even without connectivity to the cloud. But the management plane and the deployment plane, the deployment process still goes through the Arc enable that is on the cloud. So if you needed to take like if you needed to see what happened with a workflow, if you needed to resubmit, you're still going to use the same pane of glass that is Portal, and you would be able to do that. But for that, you needed connectivity with the on-prem. Last two items that we have on the list is resume from action is now GA. So you would be able to resume not the whole workflow, but a point in the workflow where you wanted to run that. One caveat that is important on this is if you wanted to rerun something that is inside repeating structure, you needed to start at this stage. You needed to start from the previous action, right? The repeating structure itself doesn't have a resubmit from there. The other one is you're not able to run a specific path inside that repeating structure. You needed to run the repeating structure in completeness. But that's already going to give you like a whole lot of other processes, excuse me, where you wanted to run your workflow, but you don't want it to re-execute some of the previous process, either because it's too costly or because it might give you a problem with idempotency. And the last item on my list is the Logic Apps consumption AI building blocks, right? So we have all those building blocks before for Logic Apps Standard, and that same building blocks that we discussed today are now in consumption workflows. So if you wanted to take advantage of consumption, you would be able to create some of those patterns there as well. And finally, a shameless plugin of the Logic Apps Aviators community, right? Like similar to what we do here on Integration Downunder. Every last Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. Pacific, we run in Logic Apps Live, and we bring in product managers, we bring in customers, we bring in engineers from our team to talk about the latest news and the real life use cases. And on top of that, we also doing a newsletter that we publish every month on our Azure Integration blog. That newsletter takes both content from the product group, but also from the community. So if you're writing blog posts, if you're writing videos, and you wanted to make sure that we discover that, the best way to do that is using the hashtag LogicAppsAviators on your socials when you're amplifying that. So you can find those other articles, curate and put it on our newsletters. And I think that's all the content that I had for today.
Okay, let me add this to the stage, and then everybody back in there. Dan and Mick, if you want to turn your cameras on, we can see your lovely faces.
Thanks,
So
Wagner.
thank you very much, Wagner. And I think after attending the AI tour yesterday in Sydney, there's lots and lots of interest in the AI stuff. So it's good to see that the Logic apps are going to be forefront to a lot of that stuff that we're seeing around the AI. Nathan did say yes, please, on the VS Code support for the templates, and I agree with him. And also, it would be really neat to be able to build our own templates.
Yeah, so that's another thing that is coming. So today you're able to create your own, create templates and submit those templates, right?
Okay.
But what we are working on is the ability for you to have your private repo for templates. So it's only applied to your domain, because in some cases you don't want to share that you don't want to share that IP. The prerequisite for that is a tool to simplify that process, because today is still kind of a manual process. You have to get a copy of your workflow. You have you have to go and kind of abstract some parts of your workflow, like your connections, your parameters, to make sure that if you have all the connectors, or you have all the parameters that clashes with the naming convention that you use, for example, it is not you're not going to be overriding when you're creating a new template. So the work that the team is focusing now, together with those accelerators, is creating our tool that we can publish on that repo for you to be able to create those workflows a lot more, those templates more seamlessly. And then once you have that tool, then you're going to come with the solution for, if I wanted to have my private repo, how can I do that?
Yeah, that would be good. Also, I wanted to plug the fact that I moved the Integration Downunder stuff to Blue Sky. So if you look, it's at integrationdownunder.com on Blue Sky. So moving away from Twitter like most people. And also, I noticed tonight we had a lot more people online at an earlier time. So I'm really interested in your feedback. Please feedback either on Twitter or on Blue Sky what you think of the earlier time, because we did have more people on tonight than we've had normally on at this time and the later time. So I'm definitely interested in that. We do get a lot more views afterwards than we do get for the people attending live, but it's just a good idea to get an idea of what people want to do.
Good to know, Nathan. Thanks.
Yeah.
Nathan said time is perfect.
Yeah. So
and, I would say for our contingent here in New Zealand, 7 p.m. is a lot more manageable than 9.
Yes, I understand.
Right? As we get old like me, 9 p.m. I wanted to be watching my last series to go to sleep.
Yep. Another one. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his name, but another person that said better time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're open to this, because the other thing is I'm working on some content around some of the landing zone stuff and some of the deployment stuff that Mick and I were chatting about today offline. But I'll be working on that for probably January. And I really wanted to dig deeper into some of the other new things that we've got out there. Plus, I'm really interested in exploring some of the AI stuff a bit deeper. So like almost taking the workshop from the tour and doing that same stuff that they did in that workshop in a Logic app. So I really think because there's a lot of people trying to build this stuff, and not everybody knows Python and all those things. So if we can make it a nice, easier approach to some of that stuff. But I do have to go.
Before you jump off, Wagner, I do have a question or 100 for you, but I'll narrow it down. Look, I love where Logic Apps is going, and I love, I use it extensively, 23 hours a day kind of thing, and have thousands of workflows on there with a lot of custom code and things like this. So I'm loving a lot of what's been done, particularly the VS Code design experience now. It feels like it's slowly coming together. Some of the things I wanted to ask on the portal, when the whole sort of operations diagnostic monitoring type piece could be a lot better. By the things like, if I've got a Logic app that's got a condition in it, I'd like to know out of all my runs which of those runs went on that left-hand side as opposed to the right-hand side. That's really, so one's a new customer, one's update a customer. So I want to know where all the new customers are. But the point that I really wanted to ask you about is that in the portal a little while ago, if you're calling a subflow and, it fails, you've typically got to go to that subflow, look it up with the tracking ID and come down. And there used to be a button on the portal that said something like follow subflow or go into subflow. And it did that for you automatically next to the resubmit from here, from this action button. It's gone, or it's gone in my, in Australia.
I'll need to follow that up with the portal team, because I think if we had that before, it looks like a bug. The only question that I have is, if that was on the old version of the designer, then it might not have been ported yet to the new designer, but it would be a good feedback, because one of the things that we wanted with that is parity. So Mick, because you have me on speed dial anyway, send me an email with that one that I can follow up with the customers.
Perfect.
And I just thought Mick was having a flashback to the old BAM for you. The orchestration debugger, where you could go into a child orchestration.
Let's start with BAM, because I think is the first answer that I'll give to you, Mick, on that whole idea is exactly business process tracking, right? So the idea of find out how many went to one side or the other and things like that would be business process tracking, because that will allow you to give more of that business view. And similar to the samples that I gave to you is like what is going to be the spread of the things. You would be able to do a lot more analysis out of that, right? Since we put in that on ADX. And I have the impression that Ken's answer to that would be similar to this.
Thank you. And
because the idea of the portal is it would be more the technical side, business process tracking coming with that, like the things that is usually really business driven, then necessarily the same for everyone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, did you get my video? There was
yes.
Okay.
And I'll be publishing the video on socials tomorrow. I had like a group of Logic Apps specialists that send what community means, right? And we run that on Logic Apps Live last Thursday. So if you go to the end of the meeting, we run that live, and I'm going to be posting that on socials at the tomorrow.
Okay, beautiful.
Mhm.
And Nathan, totally agree with you.
Yep.
You know,
Sorry,
good
guys.
job.
I have a hard cut. I've got to go. So,
You're the hard stop, Bill. All right.
yep.
See you all later.
So thank you very much for everybody for attending, and good night.
Mhm.